All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. And make sure you check out Pig and a Pickle. Two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right, the 49ers have had a very interesting offseason. They've had the free agent period come and go. They've added some pieces to the puzzle. And then they had the draft and they added some more pieces to the puzzle. Then there were the college free agents after the draft. And like every year, the 49ers are very active in that college free agent market, and they've added some more talent there. So as we sit here in early June, let's look at the players who are most vulnerable to potentially, losing their roster spots this summer. There's going to be a lot of competition in the Niners camp. And there's going to be a number of veteran players that, because of the new additions, may not be around too long. Let's talk about the guys who have a lot of pressure on them, veteran-wise, going into NFL training camp coming up in about a month. All right, let's start at tight end. Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley's in his fifth NFL season. He's a real nice player behind George Kittle. He played in every game in the previous 3 seasons, but he was a healthy scratch for 7 games late last season, including twice in the playoffs. And then you got Charlie Warner there at tight end, who played in all 17 games for the second season in a row. Last year they had Tyler Kroft. He's moved on, but even Kroft pushed Dwelley out of playing time down the stretch. And it's pretty clear that the Niners are looking for an upgrade behind George Kittle at tight end. So Ross Dwelley, I think, is going to be really challenged for his roster spot this summer. The Niners in the 3rd round of the draft took Cameron Latou out of Alabama. They really like Latou, and they think he's a really good prospect who's going to get better and better and better. Now, Latou was used as an inline blocker, but he was also flexed out at Alabama, and he's got that versatility to be both a receiving tight end and a better blocker than what Dwelley offers currently. So you got Latou sitting right there. And I think, how many teams cut guys that they drafted in the 3rd round? So if the 49ers wind up taking 3 tight ends, you got George Kittle and you got Cameron Latou. And then, who's the 3rd guy? Is it Charlie Warner or is it Ross Dwelley? And I would say it's probably Warner on the strength of his try-hard blocking. Warner is not an awesome power blocker in line, but he's tenacious. And when he locks on, he doesn't let go. And I think he is, maybe a little bit better player overall. I like Dwelley. He's really coordinated. He's almost like a jumbo wide receiver. But if it comes down to Warner and Dwelley for one spot, I probably would say that Warner is likely to get that spot. But what really makes Dwelley under the gun is that the Niners went tight end again late in the draft in Braden Willis. And then we found out after the draft that Willis was given one of the gold helmet designations by the Niners personnel department. In other words, they give a gold helmet designation to only the creme de la creme of prospects, the guys that they really love. And usually if they're getting a gold helmet designation, they don't just love them as players. They love them for the culture that they're culture players. They're try-hard guys. They're either incredibly tough or great locker room guys. And Braden Willis is a very likable player. And if you watch his film, he's fearless running across the middle. He breaks tackles. He runs with tremendous power. You can't bring Braden Willis to the ground with a simple arm tackle. So the Niners want to create better depth behind George Kittle. Kittle had a great year last year, 60 catches, 765 yards. He had a career best 11 touchdowns. I don't think we've ever seen Kittle better than when Brock Purdy took over and featured Kittle. And I asked, the tight end coach, why was it that Purdy was featuring Kittle? And he said, Kittle's got a huge catch radius. And for a young quarterback who's under the gun trying to make plays as a rookie, he looked at Kittle and said, yeah, I'm going to throw it to him in a lot of key situations. So you got Kittle. Now you got Cameron Latou. You got Charlie Warner, who's a try-hard blocker. Now you got Braden Willis, who's a fearless runner in the middle of the field and a very good blocker in his own right. And, what did Dwelley do last year? He had 3 catches and 105 yards and 1 touchdown. and you got Werner, who's a blocking specialist. So I just think that when you look at that tight end position, the odds are Latu and Willis are going to make the team. And maybe they'll go 4 tight ends and keep Warner as well. But I think Ross Dwelly is going to be challenged for his job, and I'll be shocked if he winds up beating out Willis and Latu and Warner for a roster spot. So the first guy under the gun, definitely Ross Dwelly. All right, let's go to the next one. Ambry Thomas. The 49ers got huge contributions from Ambry Thomas at the end of his rookie season. He started the final 7 games of the regular season, started a couple games in the playoffs. He had the key pick in overtime in Week 18 against the Rams that clinched the Niners' playoff berth. That was a huge, huge play for the 49ers. But then I don't know what happened last year with Ambry Thomas, but he just never played. He played 41 snaps on defense the entire season. And I don't know why his game regressed, but it did. And while that was going on, Diamador Lenore stepped up in a huge way and really took over as the starter after Emmanuel Mosley went down with a season-ending injury. And it was Lenore who played really well down the stretch, and he locked down that starting job for the foreseeable future. Now the Niners have gone into the draft. They've taken Darrell Luter in the 5th round out of South Alabama. Luter's big corner with long arms, really nice player. Then they also got Deshaun Jameson as an undrafted free agent. And let's just say this, if Ambry Thomas doesn't show up this summer ready to roll, he's not going to make the roster. So Ambry Thomas is under the gun here. The Niners have good depth now at the corner and options that go well beyond Ambry Thomas. So he's kind of been on scholarship the last couple of years because of the lack of quality depth at the position. But now there's more quality depth. And there's a very good chance that Ambry Thomas doesn't make the Niners' final 53. And do they trade him? Do they cut him? Seems like too good of a player to cut, but he may not have a roster spot this summer unless he gets it dialed up quick. All right, let's go to the next one. The Niners signed Ray McCloud last year, and they were trying to take some work off the plate of Brandon Ayuk, and Ray was good. He really was. He averaged over 10 yards on 30 per return on 33 punt returns. He had 21 fair catches. He averaged 23 yards per kickoff return on 26 kickoffs. He had only 2 fumbles. He recovered both of them. He did fumble in the playoffs against Dallas, but McCloud is right now the odds-on favorite to be their return man. But Deshaun Jameson is a dynamic returner. And I talked to Brian Schneider, I should say, the special teams coach, and he said that Ronnie Bell has been very, very impressive as a return man. And Bell's got great ball skills. He's a real smart football player. He was a 7th-round pick out of Michigan. He's going to compete for a roster spot. But let's be honest, the back end of the Niner wide receiver core have to be able to contribute on special teams, and Bell may be able to do that. And if he is, and he's very reliable, and he's a guy that can play from scrimmage, you know what? Ronnie Bell could beat out Ray McCloud. I think McCloud's a little bit more dynamic, but Bell might be a little bit safer, a little bit more sure-handed. And if Ronnie Bell has a great summer receiving, he could easily take a wide receiver job. He's not taking Debo's, and he ain't taking Ayuk's. And Juwan Jennings is a trusted guy for sure. And Danny Gray is your field stretching, your vertical threat. So it's Ray McCloud who's under the gun. And Ronnie Bell could easily take that job away from him. So look for that one. Another guy who's under the gun, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. And I love Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. Played safety at Arizona. He was the 4th linebacker and a spot starter in 2020 and 2021. And then the Niners signed Oren Burks, and they pushed him further down the depth chart. Now, Azeez Al-Shaair has signed with the Tennessee Titans, but Marcelino McCrary-Ball is there, and he is a better player from scrimmage than Flannigan-Fowles. Now, Flannigan-Fowles can hit, and he can run, and he's a very dependable special team linebacker. But, man, the Niners are loaded at linebacker. You got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. You got Marcelino. Then they drafted the TCU linebacker, D. Winters, in the 6th round. He runs 4.4. And then they grabbed Jalen Graham out of Purdue in the 7th round. And Graham has looked better than Winters in the offseason program, and he flies around and makes plays. Very smooth operator at linebacker. So then you got Curtis Robinson there, and you got Oren Burks, and you got Flanagan Fowles, and they're not going to be able to keep all three of those special teams linebackers. So they're going to have to pick and choose. And Robinson is cheaper. Flanagan Fowles is going to have a whale of a summer to keep his job. They did not tender him as a restricted free agent. They thought enough of him to re-sign him on a lesser contract, but he's on a 1-year deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up trading Flanagan Fowles, especially if Graham and D. Winters and Marcelino are as good a young linebacker trio as I believe they are. And so there's another guy who could be on the outside looking in. And let's talk about Tayshaun Gibson as well. Niners re-signed Gibson to a 1-year contract, and he's going to be their starting free safety, you would think, opposite Talanoa Hufanga. Gibson's a veteran, turned 33 in August. He had a really good year, pushed Jimmy Ward into a full-time role as the nickelback. The organization really likes Jair Brown, their top draft pick who they got out of Penn State in the 3rd round. And Jair Brown is not disappointed this summer. Supposedly he's already picked off 4 passes. He's got great ball skills. He had 10 interceptions in each of his last 2 years in Happy Valley. And I think there's a very good chance that he could beat out Tayshaun Gibson for that starting job. And then it's a matter of, well, what about Quantrez Knight? And what about Taylor Hawkins? And what about some of these other guys? They're going to be cheaper than, and you got George Odom there. So there's not a lot of room at safety. And if the Niners get into a cap situation, and if Jair Brown really outplays Tayshaun Gibson, they could go with one of these younger, cheaper options as a backup safety and move off of Tayshaun Gibson. So it's another guy whose job is kind of dangling a little bit. And then one more. Let's not forget Zane Gonzalez. The Niners acquired Zane Gonzalez from the Carolina Panthers for a conditional late-round pick swap in the 2025 draft. And that was before the draft. Then they selected Jake Moody in the 3rd round, number 99 overall. That was a clear signal that Moody is going to be the replacement for Robbie Gould. So what does that mean for Zane Gonzalez? So there's a bunch of teams around the NFL that still have uncertain situations at kicker. And the Niners will try to hold on to Gonzalez all the way down to the cutdown. But there's a chance that they flip him in a trade for a 6th or 7th round pick in August. So, there you go. I mean, Zane Gonzalez, Tayshaun Gibson, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Ray McLeod, Ambry Thomas, Ross Dwelly. You got 6 players there that were good contributors, good football players, and all 6 of those guys very easily could be out of a gig this summer. All right. Hope you enjoyed our 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.